Hi, folks. I have a real treat for you today. Please listen to Brian. Ole! Thank you so much. Well, folks, I'm very delighted to bring an old friend and teacher to the screen today, and I know you're going to enjoy this. This is Brian Katz, uh, uh, one and only musician and overall mensch, one might say, especially in the musical field, and lives in Toronto, plays guitar and piano equally well. And many years ago, I had a few piano lessons. We're talking decades ago. And we've kept in touch over the years, and I've attended some of your performances, and so I'm really happy to bring you to our little Substack channel today. Welcome.
You. Thank you, Hugh. Good to see you all.
Hmm.
I can
Yeah.
imagine you all.
We're here in spirit, and they say even the etheric body stretches out a little bit, so there can actually be a bit of a physical presence in the Zoom room and the Substack room. Right, so we're going to have a general theme today. I just would really love to hear you talk about your art, your relationship with it, music, and also we're going to examine a little bit through authentic dialogue the subject of improvisation, specifically in music, on the guitar and the piano. How does it happen? What does it consist of? And then we may be able to branch in a little bit to how do we improvise in life to be able to live a little bit more juicily, creatively, and trusting,
I
trusting,
like that.
uh,
Juicily.
peacefully. Yeah, and go with the flow, literally. So I know that you have taught music over in Switzerland and different places in Europe, York University, University of Toronto, being involved with various institutions. But maybe just give us a short recap of your, education and history a little bit. People are always curious about that.
Well, I'll go right into improvisation in a way because when I first got my guitar at 10, I really loved just playing around, figuring out some melodies from Beatle tunes, and
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong was a big, big influence. But I loved from an early age just playing around. And, I just want to assert that so much in music education happens informally. And everyone, in a sense, is musically educated because it all begins in the womb. Our hearing opens up after uh, a few months. It's dark down there. There's no Picassos, and our whole orientation to life really is through sound. So if one was fortunate to hear, one's mother singing,
Hmm.
uh, but even speaking beautifully, poetically, uh, all that rhythm and all the sound and music that you've been exposed to uh, has led us all to actually be musically educated.
Hmm.
And sometimes formal music education doesn't honor that, enough. And I think many of us that have gone through formal music education, it came from more of an ear place. There's nothing more important than the ear when it comes to musical development. Those of us that kind of really came from that place, was more central in our lives, sometimes got turned off formal education. And that happened with me as well. I had a theory teacher at 14, and I was studying some classical theory, and I said to that person, I'm interested in jazz. I'm just getting interested in all that kind of thing. And it's sort of like, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to improvise? That's not as good as da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like in brief, my music education went from, highly experiential, then into conservatory systems, and many years of fighting to regain the pleasures of the informal education. And when I got through that, then I started to really enjoy more all the formal stuff. I could really enjoy it, but it's so important that the ear stays open along the way.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness you persisted, because I think so many potentially creative people, they come up against that wall
Yeah,
of tradition or orthodoxy, um, and they get turned off and shut down, and they stop listening, and they just never pursue any kind of musical path or career. Yeah,
absolutely, and
yeah,
it very much happens with the voice. I know you do a lot of voice work,
yeah.
and that's kind of a classic thing that
Right.
with choirs in grade four, whatever, and certain children are picked out. They're the ringers, and then many kids are told they can't sing or they don't sing in tune,
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
they're tone deaf. When in fact there's a very very small, extremely small minority of people that are actually tone deaf. That's a
that's right.
it's a rare physical phenomenon.
It
Many
is.
people are not educated to as you know well, Hugh, to use their voice properly, right?
Hmm.
You learn to breathe properly and so forth. You actually sing in tune. Most people who sing flat, it's because they're not getting enough oxygen going. They have not been taught.
Exactly. And as a therapist, also very often, trauma lives in the body and stays there until it's healed.
Yeah,
And the throat chakra and the voice are part of the body. So if there's a certain trauma at a certain age and the voice gets involved with that, then 40 years later, the voice can sound really weird in one way or another and be
yeah,
uncomfortable and a real liability because of certain physical. I mean, there are a lot of little nerves and muscles in there, and then yeah. So to be able to be free, to live free, to improvise, to listen. So uh, I remember hearing that the first sense to open up in the womb and the last one to sign off at death is the hearing
mhm,
faculty. So
yeah,
it is. It's like a boat that carries us through the river of life. And so any great musician, and also authentic dialogue is a special interest of mine. And one of the main principles is deep listening, like really listening to your own voice and other people, and what's the quality of that voice, and how is that affecting you. So in music also, I studied a bit of music myself, ear training, all that kind of stuff. um, so with you, and I remember I did take one lesson more recently, a few years with you, and one of the first things you started to do was a kind of evolved ear training. So with yourself, when you're playing, especially when you're improvising, um, and I hope you'll explain more about that process, like open it up or unpackage it. What are you listening for actually in the moment of an improvisational
yeah.
moment?
Yeah, so it varies. In a sense, the improviser can bring anything to the fore that a composer can bring to the fore. That is to draw on, you know, all kinds of styles and so forth, including one's own voice. Um, and so sometimes I might have a particular um, idea that I'm going for. Like I might want to improvise something in the style of Bach, for example. Okay, so I'm going to use the tools that I've learned as a musician, both informally and formally, um, and go for that. Sometimes it's more of a stream of consciousness kind of thing. Sometimes and I should give little examples,
Yeah.
So I want to improvise, say, something, in the Baroque style. So, I'm
Mm.
drawing on techniques that I've studied, and I'm putting something together in the moment that I'm looking for some kind of coherence and for it to be aesthetically pleasing. There's many times, and this goes back to my childhood explorations, where I'm picking up, one of my instruments, and I'm going more with whatever comes into my mind. Um, and in terms of, just pinpointing your question a little bit more, I think as one develops more and more as an improviser, you're trying to find a connection between the inner sound, what some academics call audiation.
Right.
We've always talked about visualization,
Mm-hmm.
and but to audiate is like we all do that. Most of us do that to varying degrees, where we're carrying tunes, in our heads, and we have millions and millions of them. Because as
Yeah.
you posited, music memory is like it's just so it's incredible, right? We all have a lot more music in our minds than we can imagine. Um, so sometimes I'm just going more with the feel. It's almost like finding where I might want to go, sort of compositionally. I'll just do a little bit of that.
Okay.
Okay, this is just kind of me. Just
Maybe you could, I'm just going to have a little
yeah,
listener's request here. I know that you
yeah.
attended a seminar earlier today uh, about Ravel, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you could put a little pinch of Ravel in there?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, great. Okay. Uh, okay. We'll call this a pinch of Ravel.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that was lovely. So Ravel was one of the Impressionist composers, right,
Mhm.
from France. So just now, if you could just stay in touch with your experience as you
Yeah,
were playing and sort of dangling in that moment of
yeah.
who knows what's next.
Mhm.
What is your experience when you're just right in the eye or the heart of an improvisational moment?
In that particular case, it was quite directed because I'm thinking a
Okay.
little bit about, Impressionist harmonies, particularly Ravel, just having, just listen to one of my favorite pieces of his, which we were analyzing in this little seminar called La Tombe de Couperin. Um,
Oh yeah.
so, yeah, so, it's quite directed,
Okay.
uh, uh, and I'm just making very, very quick decisions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's something I've learned about, improvisation over the years is that, sort of not backpedal. So, you know, if there's some moves that I didn't feel were particularly rebellion or perhaps even interrupted the coherence that was going on, I don't do restarts. I learned, many years ago, like to not do
Mm.
restarts. Um,
Then everybody knows that you're lost, and they
Well, yeah, and it's just not as satisfying. You just need to
yeah.
move through it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So from what you're saying, it reminds me a little bit of one of the themes of my last Substack post about what I call authentic multitasking. Because apparently most people, when they're multitasking, they're really doing a succession of different things. It
mhm,
seems simultaneous, but it's not. But my theory was that if we can reach a certain level of coherence, integration within ourself, of spiritual evolution, whatever you want to call it, then we actually can be in different places at the same time. In our mind and with other people
yeah,
and in a
yeah,
different country. So you're saying that actually, when you're in that moment, at least some of the time, it's not like you're just automatic telepathy, like a channel necessarily, although that might be another state, but that your mind is working really quickly, actually making little micro
Yeah,
decisions.
absolutely. And I think you nailed that. And one of the kinds of improvisation that I'm very attracted to, because I'm also a composer. I'm a
Yeah.
spontaneous composer, but I also take time and write notes down and form them into compositions that I can play again. Some that involve improvisation, some that don't. But I really like to use it's kind of a metacognitive technique where I'm kind of thinking about the thinking. So I believe that in terms of being in two places at the same time and still finding unity within yourself, I believe you can do that in improvisation and many other things. So I'm often sitting down and say to do an open or what's called free improvisation. I'm thinking about. I'll just walk you through it. I'm going to start something, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to start with some kind of theme, and then I'm going to go off that theme, and I'm purposely going to try to come back to the theme the way a composer would be, okay?
Okay.
As an example, maybe I'll just do a little ABA form. It's a very classic music kind of form, okay?
Yep.
So here's my A. And my B. A. And my coda.
Okay.
Like create a kind of AB coda kind of form.
ABA and then coda, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's coherent because each part is reflecting the other part, but a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm purposely like trying to be, in one place, trying to be here now, and there's part of my brain that's also watching what's getting mapped out.
Yeah.
Now, at other times, I really try to relieve myself of that and totally go into more like a stream and say to myself, Brian, it's okay if the themes don't, relate.
Right.
This will actually maybe help me to get in touch with where I am right at this moment, or certain sounds I'm drawn to right at this moment. I'm going to try some of that. Okay, so this is what I'm not thinking about putting a structure on my improvisation.
Right. You're letting go of the control and the structure. Yeah.
It's still going to have some kind of structure, but not maybe as a traditional structure. Maybe it's going to be more what's called thorough composed. It's like one idea to another idea.
All right.
Not necessarily recapping something, but I won't stop myself from doing that if my instinct says, okay, you get the drift.
Yeah, great.
So here we go with that. Okay.
All right. Beautiful. So that felt my impression at least was that, like compared to the first one that had more of the structure ABA coda, that this time it was like a plot or a story that was going forward, and I'm sort of riding the horse and not really knowing. I'm trusting that the horse is going to go in the right direction, but it's sort of exciting what's coming next.
Yeah, and I don't know, one thing I love about it, well put. One thing I love about improvisation is I don't know what's coming next, and if I don't know what's coming next, and that at least the audience and me were all kind of on this beautiful edge together. Uh, it's very,
Exactly, right.
it's very exciting, right? It's
Hmm.
really exciting.
It's really the sort of the core bone of creativity, isn't it? To get to that point that's a little dangerous, a little scary, a little vulnerable, very vulnerable maybe, but at the same time trusting that there's some kind of beauty that's going to emerge from it all.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I don't think I would have had the nerve to keep on doing it all these years because it's, I go out on stage and do concerts where a lot of it, or sometimes all of it, is like completely like open improvisation. That is the edgiest thing I do, but it's also the most gratifying. And what's that word you use? Juicily?
Juicily, yeah.
Juicily, I go along, go along, go along. Juicily, I go along. Who knows where I'll go?
Okay,
But
so we got structure. A lot of people think, oh, well, I've never had any musical training. I'm just going to pick up an instrument and start playing it. Well, good luck. It could work. But usually the best improvisers are those who have also studied modalities and structure and theory and various composers, maybe classical music, different styles. And then once you know that pretty well, then you can sort of put it on the side desk and allow your improvisational skills to take you forward.
yeah, I mean, I think the more you study, either informally or formally, the more vocabulary you have. But I would argue with that, that necessarily always the most accomplished improvisers are people who have that formal.
Hmm.
Uh, I think they have more vocabulary or
Yeah.
more to draw on. But I've heard so many studying improvisers that learned through their folk tradition, through being around it, through doing it, right? Because
That's
learning
right.
music, it's not really about the aboutness in music,
Hmm.
like when Beethoven lived and
Yeah.
and where those things are all add to one's rich understanding of music. But music is really it's really about the experience in, right? So anybody who starts playing around, I mean, I was 10 years old, I didn't know theory and stuff. I'm playing around with my instrument and like just digging sounds and digging chords and my parents thought I was crazy, but I mean, with that stuff, my dad and I used to jam, but with me just sitting in my room and like just kind of playing around with
Hmm.
sounds,
Hmm.
um, I think that's just a really natural thing. Where it could be overwhelming is when you're really young and you try to do too much vocabulary, and that's where it's great. Like I wish when I was really young that somebody would said, "Hey, you really like to improvise, and I could help you even." I can empower you even more by helping you to structure it a little bit and maybe like say, why don't you try just improvising, say, on one scale? So, like, say you do a scale,
Hmm.
like when I'm now make some melodies from that.
A bit of an easy.
Because sometimes like kids, are playing around with like too many materials too early. It's fun and everything, but it might not propel you
Hmm.
to get um, a little bit more, I don't want to say serious, but a little bit more structured, with the improvisation. I mean, like for me with visual art, it was like I really didn't, have a talent for it. And I remember like some teachers just saying, some of them that were quite free, most of them weren't, but some of them were just like, well, just draw whatever. And I'd almost break into tears
Hmm.
with that.
Uh-huh.
And when I studied theater, which I also did at the University of Toronto, I took an improvisation course, and I thought I'd do great at that, like as part of the theater program. And I broke into tears too because I
Yeah.
didn't have
Yeah.
vocabulary. So I
So
think,
along that line, excuse me for jumping in, but I'm always interested in the experience. Trying to decipher and find a language to
mm,
describe, because that's how we learn and communicate, right? So that moment where you're combining structure, we'll call it control, and the other part, no control or trust, and they come together at a certain equilibrium, perhaps 50-50, 60-40.
Mm.
So when you're right in that moment, I know it's probably a hard question to answer, but what happens, or how do you make that micro decision? It's like really slowing down the process to,
Yeah. Or what some people call, you know, being in the zone.
yes.
And
Like, for example, sorry, do you ever sort of go into a kind of a trance or something where the music just plays right through you and you just sort of forget about all
yeah,
the
for
decision
sure.
making?
I've had those experiences, and that's another thing that really keeps me in music is that transcendent
Mm,
experience where I feel like I'm connecting to, a higher source, or
right.
really connecting to the audience in such a way that we become
Mm,
like one.
mm,
You know,
right. Right.
that's a beautiful thing when
Yeah.
you can get into that zone. And I like what you were saying about this balance. It came up in this workshop I did actually with Chef Gold this weekend. This balance between the part of you that's just like ready to let go, and the part of you that's trying to control something, and to find some kind of balance there. For most of us, we're always, our safety net is like more the control thing, where
Right.
we feel like we can take control, right? As an improviser, you need both, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, so, in that sense, like, improvisation in life, I find it's, for me and for, I would say, a lot of my students, and for a lot of the world, it's just like a really healthy thing to do, because I think as you begin to improvise and gain more uh, joy with it, you've found a little bit more of that equilibrium between the letting go
Hmm.
and finding techniques that you can control, like in a healthy way.
Yeah, it's a great place to visit, and I wouldn't mind living there either. So, as you probably know, flamenco, which is a special love of mine, along with jazz, it can be a very improvisational art form,
Yeah.
especially with the dancing, but also all of the musicians, of course, are in cahoots, and they have to be in it together. So, um, they say that in Spain, especially within the Gitano community historically, which were kind of the custodians of flamenco, the way Afro Americans have been the custodians of the blues, you might say,
Yeah.
and even jazz to some extent, a large extent. But that even in the womb, at the weddings and the birthday parties and the funerals and the celebrations, where there was always flamenco playing and singing and guitar, that the fetus would hear the rhythms, very complex rhythms, boom, 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 boom.
Mm.
And so by the time they're born, they already have their finger on the pulse, right? So it's so
Yeah.
easy for them to just start dancing or singing. So most of
Yeah.
us don't have that experience unless we had, very musical parents, maybe with a guitar, and the mother with a guitar on her belly. But as Tesla said, the great inventor Nikola Tesla, that if you
Yeah.
want to understand the world, study vibration and frequency and sound.
Mm. Mm.
So, klezmer, I know that at a certain point, years ago now, you developed a deep interest in klezmer music, which is part of your cultural heritage as well,
Yeah.
Eastern Europe. And I know that you've teamed up with other singers and clarinetists and musicians. So, can you tell us a little bit? I know that klezmer, like a lot of art forms, musical art forms, expresses joy and sorrow too. And do you find that that art form allows you to express feelings maybe that jazz or other modalities don't so much, or in a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
way?
Well, the interesting thing with klezmer and Jewish music, and Yiddish music, I was raised on it, so it was something I heard from,
Ah,
very, 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 very young
okay.
child. Uh, but I only sort of professionally started to, I wouldn't even say get into it like in any kind of major way, but when I started playing weddings and bar mitzvahs to pay for my composition lessons as a teenager, uh, I started playing these tunes with various bands that I heard from the time,
Mm.
I was a baby. And I
Uh-huh.
said, and then I kind of like, as a more, well, as a I was going to say more mature adult. I'm still a teeny, uh, but I recognized that these tunes were actually really good. I hadn't thought a lot about them when I was really young because they were just like around me, and I liked it and everything, but I would have never thought of doing it professionally. But as I was playing in these wedding bands, I started to realize, hey, these are good tunes. And at the same time, the klezmer revival, late 70s and 80s, the klezmer revival started happening. Now, the klezmer revival was basically a bunch of people that had also heard klezmer music, in their youth and recognized that there was this, since the Holocaust, there was this big hole in Yiddish culture in general, and nobody was playing this music. This music really got buried. So I was really fortunate to actually be in the right place at the right time for once. I got into klezmer. The world was starting to get into klezmer,
Yeah.
and that was that was great. So yeah, it does have a really strong cultural resonance for me. I feel like it's something that goes really deep,
Yes.
for sure. And in terms of your comment around the joy and the sadness, like simultaneous, I think it's also just for me, it's been an incredible good fit that way because I really well, my nickname as a child was Teardrops, and the first song I wrote when I was 8 years old was called Teardrops,
Oh.
and I was a crier, and I'm still a crier, but I mean as a kid I was like a major crier, but I was also a major laugher, and I still am. I'm a major crier and a major laugher, and klezmer music really fits the bit, on so many levels.
It
It,
does. It's
it,
very, in a way, it's extreme. Zany sometimes. The energy. Oh,
yeah,
wow, you want to
yeah.
get up and dance. Well, I've heard that there's a Yiddish production of Fiddler on the Roof in Toronto this
We
week. I
saw it.
think. Oh, did
We
you?
saw it. It
Yeah.
just finished. My partner Mina,
Okay.
twice.
Yes.
She took her son the second time, and
Ah.
it was just so beautiful. And hearing it in the original, well, not the original Yiddish. It was written in English, but then it got translated to Yiddish. But it's
Okay.
from the stories were originally
Yes.
by Sholach in Yiddish, and it was
Right.
just such a beautiful, authentic production. It's just
Wonderful. Yeah.
just incredible.
And is
Yeah.
there lots of klezmer in the
Well,
company?
it's klezmer adjacent.
Okay. Yeah.
The composer Jerry Bach did a great job at drawing on some Eastern European, Jewish scales that don't just belong to the Jews. In fact, the Jews took them from the Greeks and the Turks, and
Mm,
klezmer is really an amalgamation of a lot of Eastern European musical
yeah.
dialects,
Yes.
heard and then reproduced by the
Exactly.
Jewish musician, and then
Mm,
the Jews added their own tunes, and then the Jews came over to North America, and they added jazz to klezmer and what have you. It's like any tradition. A big word in Fiddler on the Roof. An interesting Tevye gets stuck in tradition, right, throughout the play. He wants to go back to tradition.
uh,
With all respect to Tevye, a wonderful character, whose heart does opens up, throughout the play, little bits at a time. With all respect, tradition really is not it's not a stagnant place. Tradition by its very nature it's always moving.
mm,
People come up to me sometimes because I play old style and I'm very much a postmodernist, and they say I like the tradition, or
okay.
you should play the tradition. Well, I'll say, well, hey, you want to hear something, in 1930 style? No problem. But just understand that traditions, by their very nature, are always evolving.
I like that concept. I hadn't actually thought of it that way, but I totally understand that, and I'm going to meditate upon that and probably write about it someday. Yeah. So it's a moving. We can reinterpret Bach, for example, or Ravel, or bring it up to date and throw in a little bit of 1930s jazz and who knows what. But
Well,
it's
one,
still informed by, or at least adjacent to, the original genius.
yeah, yeah. I would say even if you're playing the score I was thinking about this morning. Some of the chords that Ravel used, in like the early 1900s.
Hmm.
Um, he didn't know what was going to come after,
Mm.
after he passed. But when I'm listening to Ravel now, it's impossible for me to listen exactly the way he would have heard it in his time.
Hmm.
So when I play klezmer music now, how could I not also be informed by other things that
Hmm.
I've heard all along?
Good point.
You know?
And on a personal evolutionary, psychospiritual path too, we have our belief system, which is, you could say, that's our tradition, and a lot of it is informed by trauma and has become limiting and erroneous. Although it might have worked for us when we were 6 years old, it becomes a very limiting factor. But
Mm.
if we practice that art of listening, meaning really looking at other people, stepping outside of ourselves, and really seeing what's there, as in all the religious traditions, see with our own eyes, hear with our own ears, authentic listening, deep listening. Then when we go back to our traditional set of core beliefs, we have some new information that can freshen them, juicy them up.
Right, nicely put. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. So, just as I would love to talk for another hour, but I would love to have you back again sometime so that those people who are already addicted to our conversation will get a little bit more juiciness. But in the name of sort of winding down,
Yeah.
what about after, a lifetime, an adult lifetime of improvising and in spirit as well as in practice. Um, what have you learned from this art of improvisation or the practice that you can apply to your non-musical life as well, your relationships perhaps, or your business dealings, or your physical health even, or
Right. Well, much of course, but what immediately comes to mind, as cliche as it sounds, that just the the being, you know, when you're aligned in the moment, wherever you are, it feels good. It feels authentic, and that's the place to gravitate towards, to
Mhm.
whatever you need to do in your life to get to that place where you're going to feel in sync. And
Mhm.
in
Mm.
my case, for me, it's expanded to over many years now, in sync with my audience also. I want to create an experience together.
Mhm.
So, sometimes that means, a lot of prep and practicing. Sometimes that means a lot of deep breathing
Mhm.
before I go and play. Um, but just to have it in my mind that that's what I'm searching for. That's what keeps me in this, because there's a lot of tension that goes, and good kinds of tension as well, with the music business and performing and stuff.
Mhm.
So if I didn't feel honestly that there is something so wholesome that comes
Yes.
out of all of this for all the parties, involved, the musicians, the people around us, the audiences that listen to my recordings, I think I would have packed it in a long time ago.
Mhm.
But because I feel like I've reached enough of those moments
Yeah.
where the things come together.
Right. Yeah, you
So,
start to recognize them, the feel of it. So the first thing you said when you were starting to answer the question was when you're coherent in your present moment or something like that, then you can branch out from there. And it reminded me of something that I think Moshe Feldenkrais said.
oh,
He said that if you don't know where you are, it's pretty hard to get to where you want to go.
nice.
So let's say I want to go to Montreal, and where am I? I have no. I've lost touch with where I am geographically. The trip ain't going to happen, or at least it's going to be very confused
Yeah,
and
yeah,
unsatisfying.
yeah.
So that being, it's really like trusting your own coherence and be here in the moment, be here now, or be everywhere, every when. Another way of saying it, and then coming out of that and trusting that that's going to not only show you the next step of your own path, but create the ability to cohere with other people too
Mm.
in your community, family, etc.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely, I resonate with what you were saying, and I would just add it, and to be prepared. and I think that's something. What I'm going to say now, maybe is something that comes with more age, but just that feeling of being prepared for things to fall, for them to not happen all the time.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
things to fall, and
yeah.
just man,
Well,
right?
there's always the falling flat in your ass. I mean, that's part of life too, right?
Yeah.
And being humble and the trickster, getting a laugh maybe or making fun of yourself. Yeah, that's part of improvisation as well.
Yeah.
From goof to glyph, that even a mistake becomes a little piece of the genius.
Nice. It brings to mind also one of my major mentors, Fred Stone, a marvelous musician who I had the good fortune to meet as a teenager, and he really took me under his wings. He never charged me for a lesson, and then at 19, I was playing with him, in professional jazz with everybody that was twice my age. But in his studio. Basement, he had a sign up that says, "Don't worry, you can't fall off the floor."
How low can you go? Well, the floor's right there. So, I forgot just one last little sweetness. Would you play just a little bit, improvise a little bit on the keyboard?
Well, sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Put a little finale piece, maybe even a little klezmer adjacent.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Hey. Wunderbar. Your music has a lot of what's it? Chai, chai,
Life.
the Hebrew word life. Yeah, life force, vitality. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. Well, Brian, thanks so much, and I will put your website. Do you have a website
Yeah,
these
Brian.
days? Yeah, you do. Yeah. Underneath the interview, there'll be a little bit of an article about improvisation, and so I'll put your website. Anything else that you would like me to put in there?
No,
No.
good. Thank you.
Are you open to taking students these days, or?
Yep. I
Okay.
am. Yep.
Okay.
I'm
So
always open, always,
maybe somebody, if they're in the area, they might be interested. Yeah. I'd
absolutely.
recommend you for sure. Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you
Always
so
nice,
much.
always nice to connect and chat, and let's definitely get together and in
Absolutely.
person, have a lunch or something.
That would be nice. I would love to
Yeah,
do that maybe before too long.
yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, that's nice what you're doing. I watched some of your things. Yeah, you're lovely on screen, and it's very nice. It's very coherent, and
I enjoy it very much. Yeah. I get
yeah,
inspired, and I invite people like yourself who have
yeah,
something special, some kind of a spiritual. We don't always name it as spirituality, but
yeah,
there's something there. And often my first question is, what happened? Did you have a moment of an
yeah,
awakening? Or we didn't do that
yeah.
today, but next
Yeah.
time.
Well, my big cathartic one as a child was seeing Louis Armstrong on the Ed Sullivan Show. I broke
Ah,
into tears.
ah,
I just woke out into a sweat, and then and I think I was five, and it was just like there was something about his emotionalism. I mean, I loved music already. I had a lot of music around the house. But what I started, you're going to love this story. So what I started doing is I went because he was sweating. So kids are really smart. Going like,
yeah, he was always dabbing himself. Yeah.
yeah. So I went into my clothes closet, in my house, and I breathe
Wow.
heavily in this really tight space, make my whole body sweaty, and then I go out with a handkerchief and in front of my parents, go, "Hello, Dolly." But man, I think about that, and that's what brought me into music, like as a life.
God bless his soul. He was an amazing. He's what the Indians call what's that word for a special musical being? Gandharva, something like
Ah,
that.
okay.
Yeah, it's like Bob Marley, Paganini,
Yeah,
somebody that not only is an amazing musician but
like
carries something
that's right.
special.
I was getting that. It was his vibe as much of as his
Yeah.
music, and I think about those. I think about those things. Those are those points where you're not thinking about career. It's just like pure love, right? And I try to keep just try to keep big pieces of that because it's so
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
you know.
Well, to come clean, and since your spiritual name is Teardrop, when when you picked up the guitar and started that little improvisation with the Bach
Yeah,
adjacent,
yeah.
it brought tears to my eyes.
Oh wow.
It's my favorite composer of
Oh
the
God.
classical music. Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
beautiful.
talk about structure and freedom, right? It
Yeah,
sings, just
yeah.
completely fluid, right? And the techniques and everything is just yeah. Amazing.
Okay, my friend. Well, as we say in Latin America, un abrazo, a hug, a virtual hug, and thank you so much for your time and
Yeah.
energy and your heart.
Oh well,
Friends.
it was really nice to connect, man. Okay.
Goodie. Bye bye.